Welcome to Stepping Toward Justice with me, Sarah A. Ford, a podcast where we'll explore what justice really looks like inside of a courtroom, outside in our communities, and where access to justice is lacking. We'll talk with advocates, survivors, and changemakers working to make justice a reality for us all. We can't change what we don't understand or acknowledge, so let's take a step together towards justice. Well, we are here with Brette Stoller Tabatabai, and I always ask her if I pronounced that right.
You got it.
I got it. Good. Brette is an amazing mom, daughter, working woman who has three of the most beautiful children, beautiful family, and she is the sister of Dallas Stoller. That's how we met, unfortunately. But together, we've had a lot of conversations that I'm really excited to be able to bring this conversation between the two of us out to talk about some of the things that we've seen and experienced and want to get some of that love. We have. And your dad calls you a fierce lioness, which is like the best. I just love that. And it's so true. So welcome.
I'll take that. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. Be able to kind of tell our story from our side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had your dad on, Big Carl, as you call him.
Yeah, Big Carl.
Big Carl. Carl has really been thrust into this opposing side of law enforcement, had that law enforcement from your dad's family background and all of that. And now he's kind of coming into his own as a victim advocate. What has that been like to see that change in him?
Well, it's kind of bittersweet because it's such a terrible situation. But my dad's like, anybody, if you know me or anybody that knows me knows my dad he hung the moon. He's the best guy I know. It's been tough to see him kind of on the other side of the situation that he's normally in. But he's really just done a fantastic job. He's gone above and beyond. It's everything that I've thought about my dad, everything that I would like, every expectation that I would have for him is just, he's exceeded that. He's probably the strongest man I know. I don't know how he's doing all this. It's like with losing his daughter, I'm not sure, but he's so strong and he's so stoic. He doesn't show that, you can see it, but we see it. You guys can't really see it, but it's just very weird to watch him go through this and be on the other side of that.
It is, because it's something that is unimaginable really for anyone. And you don't, you can't imagine it until you unfortunately experience something tragic like what happened to Dallas. And losing Dallas has just been a huge tragedy for your family and for so many people that knew and loved Dallas, because
Right.
she truly was a light. She really had a beautiful spirit, and shared that with everyone.
She was. I think one of the things too, I think this has been hard for my dad. Well, it's been hard for all of us, my mom, my dad. I think him being on the other side of law enforcement and seeing one family and seeing, having to tell people, this happened, or, this person's gone. And now he's on the flip side of that, and seeing how the community has reacted to this and him losing friends and finding out who your real friends are. I think it's just unimaginable. I don't really know how to describe how he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah. So you just mentioned, how the community responded to this, and this we're talking about is Bowen Turner being accused of sexual assault by at least 3 young women, one including your sister Dallas.
Yes.
And there seemed to be some lines in the sand that were drawn pretty quickly in this situation. What was your experience, as the oldest sister, kind of helping everybody keep things together as best you can?
I don't know if other people do, but Dallas and I and Carly have a large age difference. So when all of this happened with Dallas, I am older, I had my first son, and I live up north. So I'm not, I wasn't there seeing it on the front line, what was going on there. I only got the tidbits of what was going on, how people were reacting. You know, you can see social media. Social media is so powerful. We know that. And it can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse. One of the things I think was the hardest is being so far away when all of this was going on. With all of this backlash was going on with Dallas. I mean, this is a 17-year-old girl who has adults in the communities writing bad things on the internet or treating her a certain way, like she was a liar, or like making her feel like she did something wrong, making the community divided against a 17-year-old girl. And just, it's heartbreaking to see that happen, and people with no remorse for what they were doing. I hope, one of the things that I think about a lot, and I hope that people, you know, I know my dad touched on this and he said, you know, Dallas was such a bright light, and I hope that people kind of learned something from this situation. And I really hope that's true. I don't want people to feel guilty, you know, for what I'm trying to be forgiveful and trying to be on the right side of things, but I know a lot of people think that us losing Dallas was just because of her battle with what had happened with Bowen, and her mental health issues after that. But I think that the community had a huge play in that too, if not a larger play. Just for a 17-year-old girl to be subjected to what she was subjected to is undescribable. We grew up in this community, you know, you're from there, you understand. We go to this small school and it's all about, you know, who's wearing this, who's, you know, who has this much money, or who's friends with who, or who's part of this neighborhood. And it's really unfortunate because a small place like that, and one of the great things about where I moved is just like the community. When something terrible happens in a community, you want to be around these people who are going to support and just uplift each other and be there for each other.
Rally around. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think it was so heartbreaking, especially for my dad and for Dallas, to see friends, people that we've known forever, you know, kind of take sides. And it wasn't really about that. And especially when Dallas and my parents were trying to be so giving with the opportunity of being, hey, you know, we understand that he may be sick. He needs to get help. We're not trying to ruin someone's life. And at the end of the day, and I'll continue to say this, but you not only ruined, like, this didn't only ruin Dallas's life, it ruined my parents. It ruined a lot of people's lives.
And this is with this just outpouring of, you know, lines in the sand, negativity, social media, just onslaught, was with knowing eventually, not even 6 months later, really, that yet another young woman, Chloe Bess,
Right.
was sexually assaulted. So there are multiple allegations here, and just
Yeah.
the bullying continued and even got worse.
The bullying. So I will, one of the things that I've run into, um, so I, like you said, thank you so much for complimenting my children. My oldest is 6 now. Um, middle is 5 and my youngest is 2. He's about to turn 3. But they have, they're very aware that something has been going on over the past couple years, you know, and Dallas isn't here anymore. Um, it's been very difficult to try to explain to them the situation because they're so little. And this is nothing I ever thought I would have to explain. One of the things that I tell them, because they ask me, say, well, why is Aunt Dallas not here? Where, you know, why is she in heaven? And so, you know, she passed away. She died. And you're trying to explain to a 5-year-old, what does death mean? You know, well, they're not coming back. Well, they're like, when's she coming back from heaven? And they were, so how did she die? And I wasn't really prepared for that question. I don't know how to explain that to a young child. And it really brought a huge point on, we talk about bullying. I said she was sick, you know, and Dallas was sick, and that's how she passed away. You know, there were some people who were really mean to her, and it made her very sick.
That's
And that's people, people need to know like what their words and what their actions and what you put on social media and what you say means so much.
words have power.
And
So much
now
power.
we're so much power. And it's really, it's been upsetting to see a lot of the people who were doing that on social media. You know, I see the comments that some of the people had made, you know, when all of this was going on. We went through Snapchats, we saw all the things that they were saying, hashtag free Bowen. Um, you know, it's kind of like, well, was she drunk or did she deserve this? Like things like that. Just the bullying, and not even what I think was most upsetting was from the adults in the community. That's
Yeah.
just unreal to me. And they have daughters and they have
Mhm.
children. It's just blows my mind. But one of the biggest things, and I haven't talked to my parents about this, I'm sure that they're experiencing this, but they're seeing all of these people graduating college right now. They are getting engaged and they're living their lives and they're happy and they're smiling and they're doing all the things that Dallas should be doing. And this is so that, and I don't want to feel this way, but I get angry when I see that, because we should be putting up pictures of Dallas and
Yeah.
being, you know, graduating, walking across the stage and being the person that she was meant to be. And I guess if there's anything I can say out of that is there's just the social media and the bullying. Like people need to realize what their words mean, how powerful a post on the internet can be.
And the reach of that, how far that can go,
Right.
and how
It doesn't
impactful
go
that
away.
is. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. And, Brett, you have every right to be angry because those things were stolen from Dallas and from you and your family. And, the lack of support that you all did not receive from the community. It seems mind-boggling that people would do the opposite instead of supporting victims, you know, people willingly choosing to support, people who are accused of really, really heinous crimes. And sure, people are going to support defendants. And so I get that. But the overwhelming nature of what y'all saw and what we saw um, has a huge impact on victims and victims coming forward in the future too.
Right. One of the things I want to kind of touch on is when Dallas, I mean, I know that I've talked about this with other people and I don't know to share this here, but when Dallas was the class president. Dallas, you know, was just like this super bright light. She was friends with everybody. She wanted to be friends with everybody. She really believed the best in everyone. Um, and my dad, you know, thinks like to her fault, but I'd rather be like that than be like the other people. But
Yeah.
Dallas, after this situation happened with Dallas, my husband and I
Mhm.
had her come stay with us. We wanted to, you know, just be like normal, not talk about it. I know there was a lot of stuff going on at school. Again, I wasn't down there, so I didn't see everything. I wasn't on the forefront line with her, hearing the comments that people were making or the looks that they were getting around town. So I just kind of wanted her to come up here and have a normal time. And, you know, we don't think about it, we don't talk about it. Just just be normal for a week, whatever
Yeah.
normal is. So she came up and I didn't know what to do. I was like, do I talk about this? Do I try to bring it up? I tried to, and it's like, it was obviously very fresh, very new. And then, you know, she got a little upset. So, okay, you know what? Nope, we're not going to do that. We went to the city. We went ice skating, you know, like we did some fun stuff like that. We went shopping. We actually went to my son's karate studio and we did some self-defense classes, and she was just like, it was awesome to watch her do that because it was huge. Like
Yeah.
you could see her like really taking out a lot of bad energy that she needed to. Um, and kind of seeing a smile on her face for the first time. Because the first time I saw Dallas after all this happened, like, I don't know if you've seen people that you've dealt with people that something tragic or like this has happened. It's like something goes away.
Mm-hmm.
They're different. They look different.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Physically, they look different. They look
physically they
different to
look
you.
different.
Yes.
It
Mm-hmm.
is it's I don't know how to describe it, but
Yeah.
you know. So that was like the first couple days, but then Dallas started having nightmares and she just really wasn't doing well and she was crying and like during the night and I just didn't know what to do. So she ended up going home. Um at that point, she went back to school and I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know if he was back in school with her at that point, but I think he was not after the new year. And, I
And let's
know,
just clear that up, Brett. So for a period of time, they were going to school together
yeah, yeah,
after this
after this
incident,
happened.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when she went back, after this trip, at one point there was different bullying situations going on and it was her senior year, so they were going for spring break. And I know that she was scared to go to spring break. We all went to the school, all the seniors get a house and you go to the beach and you do what seniors do. And she didn't do that. She had certain friends of hers that went and stayed at our house, which was awesome. Um, but it's like you're going to have this time with your friends and this is supposed to be a special moment. It's your senior spring break. It's your last hurrah for high school. And,
Mhm.
the whole time she was just like sick and upset because people were, watching her, she thought, or they were talking about her, which they were bullying or whatever they were doing. She's subjected to that there. And then she, we got through that and then she graduates and we're thinking, okay, nothing has happened at this point, right? Nothing has happened with the justice system. And we'll get into
She'd
that.
just been charged. She'd just been charged, I think, at
Right.
this point.
Just
Yeah.
been charged exactly at the beginning of the year, but nothing has happened, right? So we're at this point, it's kind of like just trying to get her to be in a decent mental health state of mind, you know? So we're thinking, okay, good. I remember when she was applying for schools and I was like, you need to go out of state. You need to go out of state. I remember she really wanted to go to Alabama and I was like, roll tide, go, you know? Um, but Dallas loves, and I love my parents too, but Dallas is very attached to my parents. So she wanted to be close to them. And I get that. So she chose college at Charleston. That's where our mom went. And I was like, okay, good. It's like a little bit farther, not as farther as like her to go on, but
A big
whatever.
school,
That's
though.
what she wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's different, they're good, and it's Charleston. There's people from all over, and like you're going to meet different people. You don't even have to talk to people from Orangeburg.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's unbelievable that it followed her there. One of the people who started this, hashtag Free Bowen, one of the main like people that were bullying her in high school ended up being on her hall in college, and it started all over again there for her. It was the bullying, it was the being talked about behind her back, and when someone's through this and they have the anxiety and they're dealing with anxiety and depression and all of this is in the back of your mind, she struggled, like she really struggled. And actually that girl actually ended up showing up to Dallas's funeral, which I thought was really interesting. But I just want to, I don't know why I wanted to say that, but
Yeah.
you know, guilt, I guess. But
Brett, so when this was happening, and this kind of continued from school, from high school to college,
right,
I mean, it was, the general bullying, the talking behind her back, but also people were actively saying, like, we're going to watch you so that when you mess up, we're going to take pictures of this and we're going
right,
to show that you're a liar. Like,
right.
that was, I mean, people were actually saying that.
Yes. His attorneys at the time had told his friends to watch Dallas and take pictures of her and try to discredit her. College is supposed to be some of the best time of your life. You're a freshman in college, you're supposed to be going and having fun. Obviously, you're supposed to stay on top of your academics, but you're supposed to be going out there and figuring out who you are.
Enjoy yourself.
Yes,
Exactly.
enjoy yourself. Go to the bar, have fun. That's normal. She didn't do any of that because she was scared. She didn't want to be, as much as people were already discrediting her, she didn't want to be put in that situation. So that's just a terrible first year college experience. Fortunately, she had a really good friend who went to the University of South Carolina Beaufort, had a place down in Bluffton, and that's a special place in our heart with our family. And she ended up transferring, which was awesome because she had a good friend group down there, and she kind of actually did get away from it there, and she really started to what I thought started to heal down there. Um, I think. Well, let me back up before I get into this. So at this point, she's only dealt with the community like bullying, and we had the other victim who's dealing with the bullying and actually ends up having to move out of state. Well, I think one of the biggest shocks to her system, or like a young girl in general system, is when you have a state senator slut shame you publicly.
That was at the Chloe Best bond hearing, right?
Yes. Right.
Or the bond hearing for Bowen Turner involving Chloe Best. So when Dallas graduated high school in 2019, this is before she went to College of Charleston, and all of this bullying and shaming really followed her to college. We then learned that there was another victim of Bowen Turner, Chloe Best, who Bowen Turner actually pled guilty to assault and battery in her case. But that
Yes.
happened after he was released on house arrest in Dallas's case. He was out on bond, had an ankle monitor. The ankle monitor was taken off, and then 41 days later, he was accused of sexually assaulting Chloe Best.
Correct.
I mean, it's just completely shocking. Number one, but number two, I know how difficult, or I can imagine how difficult that was for Dallas and your family, knowing yet someone else is going through these same things, these same feelings that we
Right.
are.
Right. So, yeah, I think I can't speak for them. I wasn't there, during that time, but I do know, when Dallas and I did end up talking about this later on, um, it's kind of like there was almost a little bit of, I don't know what the word is. Chloe was able to, unfortunately, she experienced the same bullying, the same drawn line in the sand in the community, and they ended up leaving. They ended up moving. Um, I think that it's almost like I wish that that was possible for Dallas. But again, the timing, and this is what we thought. We thought, okay, they were able to move and they were able to, quote, get away from it to some extent. And then it's like, okay, well, then maybe college will be that for Dallas. You know,
Yeah.
maybe that's what that would be, but it was not, as you know. Um, just the continued bullying at College of Charleston and the continued, being watched or being told by other attorneys that they need to watch her to discredit what she's doing or discredit her.
These are kids that we're talking about here. I mean, 17,
Right.
18 years old.
Right.
Up to this point, with Dallas's case, Turner was charged with criminal sexual conduct. He was charged as an adult. He turning 17. And at this point, you'd had some run-ins with the bond courts, but really hadn't had much interaction with the court system.
Right.
Was that surprising to you? As someone who really had never dealt with this, or your family, um, in this capacity at least, was that surprising? The limited nature of the interaction?
Absolutely. So I don't know. This is one of the biggest things is anytime I used to talk to, my friends up here about what was going on, my husband, my family up here, and they would ask questions. They would be like, why is nothing going on? And I would tell them, and well, what was the update or what's not the update? And
Mhm.
I swear, like my husband used to say, he's like, that can't be right. That's impossible. The amount of times people told me that's not right, Brett. We know you have a big imagination. That's not possible. I'm like, no, it's real. This is happening. This is like, there's nothing being done. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It
It
doesn't.
doesn't make sense.
We are still sitting here and it does not make sense.
It doesn't. I'd say that all the time that, I'm someone that's in the system, so to speak, representing victims on a daily basis, former prosecutor, and it doesn't make sense. Like
Right.
it just doesn't. Our system is not created with victims in mind. And that this
Yeah.
is this example of what your family had gone through and what Dallas went through and the other families and victims. It's just, I mean, you can go for a long period of time and nothing happened with the case, like years.
One,
What's your understanding of what one of those reasons is why it went on so long with nothing happening?
I think one of you were there when we talked to David Miller that day. I think that was one of the biggest
And he was
slaps in our face.
he was the prosecutor.
Yes, yes, the original prosecutor. Probably one of the biggest slaps in the face is saying, is talking about the time and saying that they were doing the best they can, or things take time. If somebody told me things take time one more time, it took enough time for her to not be here with us anymore. How much more time could we possibly give you? We can't give you anything else. You've taken everything.
Yeah.
So that excuse is unacceptable. And after we spoke, the last time we spoke, I spoke with Bill Weeks, and I'm told it's on my desk, or SLED, it's on my desk. I'm constant. The amount of times that I've been told it's the front and center on my desk. But these things take time. These things take time. These things take time. We're out of time.
That's so true, because one of the issues that we ran into in this case, and I kind of came into this case kind of halfway through. I did not originally start out working with your family, but the defense attorney was a lawyer legislator, which meant that he received protection from having to go to court for at least half of the year.
Right.
Sometimes, I think it's some years it was like 8, 9 months even,
Yes.
that they were limited into when they could call this case into court, even for just a hearing, which,
That's absurd in itself.
yeah.
There shouldn't be lawyer legislators, but that's a whole nother thing.
Well, if you want to talk about that, Brett, I mean, we can talk about that. I mean, the fact that there were lawyer legislators involved in this case really limited how quick this case could be, or was one of the reasons why this case
Right.
really took a long time. We're talking 2, 3 years. Do you think that that's fair for victims or for the community?
No, it's absolutely not fair. It's not fair on so many different levels. You know this. People know this. I mean, people across the whole nation should know this now, especially after the Murdaugh trials and seeing this situation. I mean, there's no more there's no more hiding this corruption that's going on, and that is the word for it. I mean, these lawyer legislators are appointing the judges and then going before these judges and presenting cases to them. That is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. The amount of people, we have a lot of family in politics that are up here, my husband's family. Um, federal judges, and the amount of just awe when people hear this, it just doesn't make sense. And well, we talked to Attorney General Wilson, and I've talked to different legislators in general, and it's kind of like it blows my mind when the question is always like, well, what else are we supposed to do? And it's kind of like, well, yeah, we agree, but what are we supposed to do? Well, how about what the 49 other states? Because again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's South Carolina and Virginia are the only two states in the United States that follow this judicial system, and
Yeah.
it just blows my mind that it's like incompetency at its finest. That is the response.
Well, and we've talked about this, like maybe limit lower legislators, maybe don't allow them to vote in those elections,
Right.
or maybe let's rebalance our judicial merit selection committee so it's not filled with lawyer legislators and maybe
There's
it's filled
just
with
so many. It just,
community.
and I know, I get so passionate and worked up about this because it just makes me so angry that people put their trust in these officials that they're electing. They're putting these people in office, and their response is, well, we don't know. Well, what are we supposed to do? Or when we meet with people and they say, oh, yeah, we agree with you. We're behind you. Well, what are you going to do about it? It's not my job to do about it. We put you in office to be the voice for us,
Right.
and you're not doing that. So huge. Voting matters. Another major thing for that. Voting matters, obviously. And that's a
It
whole
does.
nother conversation to get into. But
We'll have you on like in
yeah,
November when we're
yeah, but goodness gracious. I mean, yes. I don't have anything nice to say about that.
well, it really
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. That situation and that excuse, again, a slap in everybody's face.
I
I
don't
mean,
think people even understand how it connects for victims because every time there's a hearing or an appearance or something, a victim is notified through, the solicitor will contact us, or if they don't have a lawyer, they'll contact the victim directly. I mean, just seeing the name of the solicitor or the prosecutor on the phone or in an email, I mean, that takes a victim back. I mean, it's
right?
re-traumatizing them every time,
That
thinking
is a
back to
trigger.
what
That is a
happened to them.
trigger.
Absolutely. And so if we
Such a
have these
trigger.
delays, it's insane the number of times we're expecting victims to just have to relive their trauma over and over again with no real end in sight.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things that led us to where we are right now is, and this, and this is something I really talked to you and said I want to touch on because I want people to understand like what has happened and what this has done. um, Dallas and my parents, from what I understand, and within that 3 years from the time this situation started to the time we talked to David Miller on that Zoom call that day, that was the first time they had ever they did he ever speak with Dallas? I think once in 3 years. One time. One time in 3 years. The person who is supposed to be for the victim, one time in 3 years. And then you call a Zoom meeting, you know, was it the day before or a couple days before they made this, sweetheart deal with
Yeah.
on the Chloe Best case? And you call this Zoom meeting a couple months after we just buried my sister because of the time. The time is such a huge key in all of this. The time. You did not, just the lack of communication blows my mind. And then you're going to continue to tell us that, you're working on it, and you just continue, even after we are where we are, you're still holding us on this line. You're dragging us along with this hope, this false hope that you're actually going to do something. And it is so frustrating to sit here and be quiet, and we'll get into that and why we've been quiet recently. But first, before we do that, I want to get into where we are, like how we got here. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to talk about Dallas passing, if that's okay. I don't want to be
Absolutely.
upsetting for anyone. I know it's like big trigger, but I want people to know. I want people to hear what this has done.
When we've talked a lot over the past few years, and um, I know that you've been quiet about a lot of these things, but we're wanted to talk about these things. And I told you,
Right.
listen, if I have a small platform, the microphone is yours. I want you to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. And I think it's important for people to hear about that, about what happened to Dallas and why, and just how tragic all of these seemingly unrelated things, from lawyer legislators getting protection to communities lack of support, all of these things had real consequences for Dallas and your family, and for those of us that knew and loved her.
Yeah, like exactly what you said. We've spoken to so many people, and I'm so grateful for the platforms that have been able, Will folks at Fitz News and, just all these people that have helped us
Will,
out
yeah,
and
Will
get,
has been a longtime supporter of.
yeah, yeah. And like Katie Kamen, like she's been amazing. She was the first one to actually come and sit down and talk with us, and she was incredible. Um, with that being said, and I mean, we talked to Mandy Matney, I did the interview with her. With that being said, we haven't really talked a lot about Dallas, like, and about that that day. It's kind of been like a little hush on that, which I get. They want to more focus on the big problem, but I think this needs to be a part of the story as well, because the fact of the matter is we did lose her. She's gone, and that's a major part of this. So, yeah, I don't really know how to just like jump into it, but so like I said, Dallas, Dallas, my younger sister, Dallas I remember when my dad and Michelle said that they were going to have a baby. And I don't know how old I was at that point, but I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get a baby. I'm going to get a baby, you know?
Your real
And
life baby doll
yes,
sister.
yes, she's my real life baby doll. So I'm gonna get I'm so excited. I'm gonna get this baby. I remember one of my friends at the time got Dallas this baby blanket, and she had that until she was an adult. She had that baby blanket. It's the
Mhm.
funniest thing. But every Friday, I just remember Fridays were like when Michelle would come pick me up from daycare, and I'd sit in the back of the car, and I'd be like, "Is the baby here yet? Is the baby here yet?" You're little, you don't know. And then I just remember one day I got picked up and it was my parents. I was like, oh, the baby's going to be here. The baby's going to be here. I remember them bringing her home. I don't remember like being at the hospital or anything like that with her, but I just remember carrying her around. Like I just always wanted her to, she's my baby doll, you know? And what I had this picture, and it's one of my favorite pictures, and I remember this day. It's like a core memory. I used to go, to school in St. Matthews, and I think it was May Day. It was something like that. And I was so excited because they were coming, and everybody was going to get to see my little sister. And I have this picture, and my little sister, and she was like, she was so big, she was so cute. And I'm just like holding her, and I have this picture, and I'm just holding her, and then just so freaking proud. And
Yeah.
that was like one of the things that's always so proud, then we get older, she's was like annoying me, and I'm a teenager, angsty teen, and she's just annoying little sister. And we fight, and it's not
Sisters.
actually until we got a little bit older is when we started like falling back into that, like, okay, sisterly like love, and unfortunately we got really close after all of this happened. um we found a lot of helping each other, being able to talk to each other about situations that we've been in or like what we're doing. What was awesome is she was really getting into like meditating and different holistic ways to try to help herself with dealing with what she was dealing with internally. And I'm very big into that. So, we talk about that a lot. And she was come up and visit a lot, which was, I loved that. and just get to show her different things and like show her that there's so much more than that little small town where those people's voices don't matter. Your voice is the only one that matters, you know? So it's a thought that I really, 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 really thought she was doing okay, you know? And that's the thing. You just don't know, like, if people are doing okay. You know, right before we lost her, that summer before we lost her, we were down for a week in Bluffton, and we were staying house on the May River, and it was just me, her, and my husband and the kiddos. Um, I think Carly had like volleyball camp or something like that, and I don't know. It was just us down there for the week, but per usual, we had like a chaotic week. You know, we actually accidentally wrecked a boat. We, you know, just just typical like us stuff. Like it's hard to know if you know unless you know who we are. But we had an incredible week, and I just remember us sitting on the deck out there and just talking every night. We just sit out there and talk, and just talk about life, and talk about, you know, our parents, and talk about what we're going to do. And, you know, I try to be like, well, I tried to get her to move up there so many times, and I'm still trying to get Carly to move up, but because I miss being with my sisters, you know, that's huge. And you don't really know that until you get older, you know, and
Yeah.
you're not screaming at each other for taking somebody's clothes, or you're making us late to school, or just
Get
all
out of
this.
the bathroom. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Screaming, did you use my brush? What is this?
Yeah.
You know, but I'll never forget. And I'm so, so, so thankful for that week that we had. And it was just Dallas. And I have some awesome pictures of her with the kids there. And that was actually the first and last time she ever saw my youngest. And that was the last time my kids ever saw her. And I'm so thankful that it was there. And it was a happy memory. And that's something that they're always going to remember. Um, but I just remember her being optimistic, and I really thought that she had like turned a corner. And that's this one thing that happens, you know, when the solicitor's office and everybody just dragged this out for so long, everything dies down, you know, it gets quiet. And it looks from the outside like there's some peace
Right.
because there's nothing happening. So as you know, the sister, as her mom, as her dad, as her friend, you don't want to bring that up. You don't want to open that wound when it looks like, okay, everything's okay. And then you start questioning, you're like, okay, well, like, we don't really want to bring any of this up and open this wound back up. Just like you said, just like when you see that solicitor's name come across, or that just takes you right back to it. So you don't want to stump that progress. So we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it. Um, I don't know if that was right, or I don't know if that was wrong, and I'll never know that. But we didn't talk about it because everything seemed like it was okay, and nothing was happening on the other end. And
I think that's such a good point, Brett, because I think so often, we don't know. For those of us that, have been around victims and survivors, it's, the one thing that we can always remember is that for most survivors, it's not something that goes away.
right,
You bringing it up is not something that's going to say, I'd completely forgotten about it. Thank you for bringing it's something that's always on their
right,
mind.
it's
And
always
so,
there.
yeah, it's always there. So, your sister knew that you were a safe space for her if she wanted to talk about it. And I think that's something that I tell people all the time is just let someone know. You don't have to bring up details, but just say if you want to talk or if there's
Right,
something that you want to discuss, I'm here for you, whatever you need.
right.
And you were that person. You absolutely were that person. You are that person.
I think um, Carly, our sister Carly, she doesn't get enough credit. She was definitely that person for Dallas. You know, because they were there. They're so lucky because they were there together, and they were closer in age, and they got to experience that. They also got to experience the fighting and all that good stuff that we got to do. But again, that was me moving away. I would have been closer if I was home, but you know, I'm thankful for the time that I did have. Um, we got to see Dallas, so you know, we came back up, and I had talked to Dallas, and she actually had mentioned, you know, possibly coming up here for a little while, and life gets in the way and you have your kids and you have your work and everything going on. And that's one of the things that has bothered me and will bother me for a long time, but we just kind of didn't talk about it. And that was
And
that
this was
fall.
fall of 2021. I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to give
Yes.
some context.
Yes. This
Fall
is
of
fall of
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
And I actually saw Dallas. My cousin Lauren got married in Aiken, and we went down for the weekend. And that was the last time I saw her. I actually have some awesome like pictures from then too. She was super
Beautiful
happy. She was
photo.
dancing. Dallas loved to dance and be like up in the dancing scene. And she was like, she had that huge personality. And she just this smile. Like, I don't know how to describe the smile. Again, it wasn't the same as it always was, but it kind of like, I think my dad touched on this too. It's kind of like when all of this died down, it's kind of like you see that a little bit again. So you don't want to make it go away, you know? So we went and ate at Mellow Mushroom like that Sunday before we go back to see our flight. And that's always one of the things I'm like, we just ate at Mellow Mushroom. That seems like, you don't think about the last time you see somebody
Yeah.
until it happens.
Right.
And I'm like, well, we did like Mellow Mushroom, so that's good. But um yeah, so that was in the middle of October, and then it was November. So November 14th, um, we said our byes, see you later, love you, see you about Thanksgiving, or see you Christmas, whatever. Um, she went back to school with her roommate. And we're all just living our lives, doing what we're doing. And I had just came back. My husband and my kids and I just had an awesome weekend down in Chesapeake. And it was a Sunday, and we just came home, and we had some friends over for the Eagles game. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna have friends. This is in November, like football. We have friends over, cooking chili, and my cousin Lauren, who had recently just gotten married, had been texting me over the weekend saying, hey, Matt, or, her husband, she wanted to come up and visit. We're trying to plan a trip. I'm like, okay, cool. So we're all, we have all our friends over. Kids are downstairs playing, wreaking havoc. We're eating chili. Everybody's having a good time. And I get a text message from Lauren. And it's like, hey, call me. And I don't think anything about it. I was like, okay, she wants to plan. And she calls me, and then I don't answer because I'm like, I'll just call her later. She doesn't know we're like half people over right now. And I'm just like, I'll call her later. I'll call her later. And she calls me back again. So generally, if somebody calls you twice in a row like that, something's not, they need to talk to you. Something's not good. I didn't answer the phone, and she immediately texts me. She says, have you heard? And I'm like, at that point, she thought that I knew what was, going on. And
Right.
I immediately like jump up, and I'm in front of all of these people, jump up, and I get on the phone, and she says, hey, I need you to, where's Kayvon? I need you. Kayvon's my husband. Where's Kayvon? I need you to sit down for a minute. And I'm like, no, no. I'm like, no, no. And I thought it was my dad. I'm like, it's my dad. My dad's dead. Something's my dad, And I'll never forget. I'm just standing in the doorway, and I'm just telling him, saying, no, no, it's my dad. I'm screaming. It's like, my dad's dead. And she just starts crying, and she says, no. And she says, it's Dallas. Never in a million years did I think was that going to come out of her mouth. And it's weird. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard this, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I hope you haven't, but when something like that happens, when you hear that, I drop the phone. I'm going to try to like hold it together. So, I dropped the phone, and the scream that happened was just like, they call it a soul scream. Sorry.
Don't be sorry at all, Brett. You
And
you
if
share
you heard
whatever you.
that, like, it, like now I've heard things since then, but it's like a part of your body, like a part of your soul leaves your body. And I'm just screaming. No. I'm screaming no. I'm screaming no. I felt like I was screaming no for hours. And I'm screaming so loud. I don't think I've ever screamed so loud. And my husband comes over and he's grabbing me. He's like, "What's wrong?" Because nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's like freaking out. They don't know what's going on. And I'm just like, "It's Dallas, it's Dallas." And I'm just on the floor. I'm just crouched on the floor. And I can't breathe. I like open up the doors and I just fall down in the yard and I'm just screaming. And I live in a tight, it's basically like a little Charleston, like downtown. And I'm screaming. I'm like, they're going to call the cops, the whole neighborhood. And they're trying to get me to just calm down. Um, my friends are awesome. One of my best friends, Emily, was here and she like ran downstairs and got the kids, like put all the kids downstairs and they're like, turn the music up and they're dancing and just trying to distract. Um, it's just like the screaming. If I hear that scream or like I've heard that scream since, unfortunately, like with people that I know, and it's something that never ever goes away. And I wasn't there with my parents or my sister. They were there with her and watched, like had to say goodbye to her. I mean, she was already gone, but they were there, but I can't imagine what was going on there. But I don't think people realize when Dallas was gone, and I don't want to say this, but when people took her from us, because they did, I don't think that, I know that on all of our interviews or anything you've heard us say, she passed away from a self-inflicted wound. And we don't say that she killed herself because we don't want to say that. Because I don't think that she did kill herself. I think a lot of people did that. And people just throw this situation around and they just talk about it and can still be so awful and so mean and not understand, like, you don't understand what you did, what you took. And it's not coming back. And it just blows my mind that people can still act the way they do and still be the way they are, knowing that she's gone. The prosecutors, the solicitor, like they are so concerned about themselves. It's like have you ever thought once about her? Have you ever thought about her, how she must have felt, how we felt, how my parents felt? It's like that's not in anybody's mind. It's like that's not there. It's not about Dallas. It's like it's just trying to get us off your back or trying to get the pressure off your back or the media off your back. It's just super upsetting. I mean, people need to know, like, this is about Dallas. Like, she's not here anymore. You don't understand what it did to my parents, me, my sister. Like, we're all different people and we're never going to be the same. I'm sorry.
Don't you dare apologize, Brett. I told you, I said we could talk about the weather, we could talk about whatever you wanted to talk about. And I think you sharing what you just shared is so incredibly powerful because, these cases are not just a name. It's not an indictment number. It's not a warrant number. We're so defendant focused that sometimes it looks like nobody is looking at the victim. Nobody's looking at how this is affecting Dallas and you and your family. And you're all victims of this. And I think that's such a powerful reminder when you're just, it's a necessary reminder. It's something people need to hear, Brett, because
Right.
we think of everything from the defendant's point of view and almost never from the victims.
Right.
And that's not okay. Because a victim will never, ever, ever be able to turn around and say, let me take this off. What happened to me, I can take this off and leave it. They can't,
Right.
They have to learn how to try and live with that. And sometimes that pain, it becomes too much. And nobody really thinks about